right, here we go. So we have a data set with the employee ID, name, department, job title, hire date, salary, performance rating, and location. So a little cleanup work here. If you want to get this wider to where you'll be able to see every cell, give a double click on the right side of that cell and it's going to go ahead and open up. Looks like we have some formatting that may not be helpful. We'll format that out. Date, time. We're going to move and select this one. All right, we want to make any other changes. Looks good. Maybe you don't want the top of this to be so long for such a small one character cell. Maybe bring it in, reformat that to wrap your text. Give you some of that, and then yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that. Some depends on just how detailed you want to be, how much you want to clean your data up. I always like to clean up my data up before I start manipulating it, make sure it's where I want it. So looks good to me. We're going to go ahead and insert a pivot table. That's going to be here at the top. I select my data source, click pivot table. It's going to open it up a new worksheet. It's selecting this data set. Now again, if you have merged cells, if you have if you've done a lot of work in it, it might ask you to clean it up a little before it allows you to submit a pivot table. So here we go. This is the initial view of what when you set up a pivot table, what that'll look like. You have your rows, and what that means is when you select any of these fields, the rows will go up and down. And when you, so that's how you think about it as you make placement. So let's go back to the main page and say, well, what story, if you were a leader here, what story would you want to understand? Well, I'd probably want to understand the average salary by specialty. That would be probably the first question. And I'd also want to know the average cost by department. So that's the first. When I take a glance at this, that's a question. I say, hey, let's answer those questions. Average salary by specialty, and average cost by department. So again, being able to hear the story, this is a lot of data that you just look at, and being able to answer these questions quickly is going to help you and your team perform. All right, so we will start with average salary per job title. So we're going to bring our job titles in. I like to clean up any blanks. And we're going to bring the salary as the value. Note this says sum of salary. What we need to do is create average value setting here. And now this gives us the average salary. Showing our director peaking out at 83,000 a year. So that answers that question. Now we might want to talk about, well, how does, when I think about this, because we also have location, how is that impacting the average salary? So we might look at that. Let's take a look there. So right away, we can see that the salary change the salary changes here are not linear by location. So what you're seeing is that in some places the director might be the highest paid role in, for instance, Houston. Here, however, if you go to Chicago, the director is not the highest paid role. You can see easily here. So it's just telling you a story that you may have a, an opportunity there in compensation. You want to look at to see why those aren't linear. Is it based on supply and demand? These are questions that and answers that you get by being able to manipulate this data. What other question? We talked about departments, so we'll look at and say, hey, what department is costing us the most, right? So again, let's take out location, go to department. Clean these blanks up. And let's look at our salaries here. Sum of salaries tells us that our most expensive department, well, it's IT. Is anyone surprised? Right on. So, that was a joke. All right. So that's the most expensive sum of salary. And then we can take what is the average salary of each department as well, if we want to take a look. And there we go. Looks like R&D ekes out as the highest paid average salaried department. Let's go back to our data set and take a look and see if we are inspired for any questions that we might want to answer. Let's take a look if we can see when our employees, we have 1,000 employees in this data set, when they were hired, and let's kind of look at that. Maybe the growth of the company, that might be a question that we want to answer. And then maybe we take a look at average rating by department and location, average performance rating. So let's take a look at that. Let's clean this slate and pull these off here. All right, let's go for hire date. By year, there we go. And let's move. So an important I'm going to back that up. Let's try to edit that. All right, so we have a clear slate. Let's go ahead and take a look at the hire date. We want to kind of take a look, when are these employees being hired that we're reviewing? And let's take a look at that. So it's important at the beginning of when you're looking at your data, that you're going to have a unique identifier for each set of data. If you have, so for instance, right here, if I have 1,000 employees, there's a chance that there's 2 people with the same name. So I have in cell A1 your employee ID. If there were no employee ID in this data set, I would go ahead and make some type of of unique identifiers so I can use it in kind of in count manipulation, which is what we're about to do here. So again, we're looking, I was asking the question, when were these employees hired? Let's take a look at that, and using the unique identifier as their employee ID, that's going to go ahead and let me see a calendar. I'm sorry, that's going to go ahead and let me see a count of what that may look like. And then, so this would be a good example of something you may want to display in a chart. So let's take a look at that, what that might look like. Let's insert a chart here showing the years and number of employees that were hired. It's a pretty basic chart, but it's just an example. You can click on a pivot table, use that data, change the, change how it looks. And so there's a lot you can do here. So you have pivot tables. What you just showed you there is inserting a chart, which you'll see more throughout this series. And then also we're again going to cover slicers. So that tells that when kind of question is, it looks pretty flat, like maybe there was a dip in the early 2000s. Again, we can go and answer all these questions specifically. Kind of what I'm showing here is how can I quickly open up a data set and in 5 minutes answer some questions and become more knowledgeable than I would be if I was not able to look at data in this way. So I think we talked about performance rating by job title and specialty. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. I did something wrong there. We'll start out with job title and average performance rating. So here we go. And initially, again, like before, you see the sum of the performance rating is automatically selected. Let's go ahead, change this value to average. And this story tells us that the performance rating of the engineer is the highest for the data set across all locations. Again, now, telling more stories on that. By location, do we see anything? And these kind of things jump out, right? So you're at 2.75 performance rating on average in Houston for the coordinator role. Well, then I'm gonna start looking, okay, what else in Houston? So now I might even switch this because I want to see this is Houston. We got an issue going on in Houston, and then I can come back and see, okay, Houston's average is 312. It might be a coordinator issue or a coordinator leader issue. So then you move in and you say, okay, let me see who these people are, and then you can double click into your pivot table data that is showing and get the detailed data by double clicking into that. So real quick, remember, you're in a pivot table, you're looking at, again, the average performance of the coordinator and in Houston, and I say, well, who are those individuals? And then I can see, you see all the coordinators in Houston. So it's a great way to, again, pull out data to use and help tell the story. So I'll close these. All right. I think we just did both, right? So we really talked about the average by site and average by job title when we switch these around. And you can tell a story again. Let's one real quick. We're going to go through a slicer on this, then we'll move on. We'll close this one out, and then there'll be opportunities later for other use cases for you to check out pivot tables in Excel along with charting and slicers. So let's go ahead and let's fill this guy up and talk about slicing real quick. So using slicers is a great way to, again, manipulate data fast to get quick answers. So let's go ahead and see what that might look like. That didn't work. I'm gonna have to redo that. All right, so here's an example where we're looking at our locations, job titles, departments. We also have the name, we have a value in there for performance. So let's talk about what a slicer may look like. We're going to go to insert. You click anywhere in the pivot table, go to insert. You want to be in pivot table analyze, and you're going to insert your slicer. So when you're looking at this, say, what do I want to filter in and filter out? Well, I'm going to want to know what I'm going to want to filter in: departments, job titles, probably performance ratings, if that's an answer I want to talk, if that's a question I have, location. Let's start in with that and then see how you can manipulate the data in a pivot table with your slicers as well. So okay, so right now I have my pivot table laid out, my locations. So I think that's probably a fair way to do that, where you'd want to look at, leaders probably by location. So let's go by location. We're going to look at that and just see, what markets are doing well. But say I only want to see the finance market, right? So just filtering out quickly using these slicers and dicers is great. So you can clear it here. You can take by pressing control, you can take them on and off, where now I'm looking at just R&D and sales, and so whatever's highlighted there you're going to be using. Or again, you can clear your slicers there. So there you have it. If you say, hey, I only want to see the top performers. We have promotion coming up. I want to use this pivot table, this large data set. So there's 1,000 people in this data set, and you want to answer the question, I want to see the top performers for promotion opportunities in each service line. Let's take that. So we're in Chicago. So by location. So we're going to promote by location and look at that. So I just really want to see top performers. So here are my names. Who are my top performers in Chicago in HR? So now, I'm sorry, in HR, let's undo that. So now I have 4 people to look at for promotion. We have a promotion in Chicago in HR, and they are all coordinator roles, which That's interesting. So but it's selected. It's just there's no coordinator roles with high performance. So that would be something you might want to, or there's only coordinator roles in Chicago with high performance like this. So that might be something you want to look at again. I don't think I'm going to beat this horse anymore. I'm not going to say that. So that's a quick introduction to data sets, pivot tables, slicers, and charting earlier. Let's do one more chart and see. Let's look at the data and see what we might want to look at. Let's look at a pie chart. I think it's going to be fairly homogeneous, but let's look at a pie chart by job title. So again, jump in here to the pivot table. You have your unique identifier. It's going to give you your number. So if you want to say, like, how many do I have of this, find a unique identifier like the employee ID here, and we are going to be job title, and that's it. Now I want to see, maybe you want to, again, pie chart for some reason. Let's take a look. It looks like it'd be a nice pie, nice piece of pie. Oh. There you go. And you can change your chart, copy it, paste it into a PowerPoint you want to do, or whatever you'd like to do. This is an example of using data files in Excel to tell a story. And I hope I helped someone out. If you'd like to see more, if there's a data set you want to work through, if you'd like me to work with you, if you have a question and you'd like me to work with you on this skill set, DM me and let's see what we can do. Thank you. Look out for the future Excel pivot table, charting, and slicer classes by division, and see you soon. I didn't like that ending. Let me try that again. So there you have it. That is the generic introduction to So there you have it. That's a generic introduction to Excel using pivot tables, charting, and slicers, right? Let's try that again. So there you have it. That is introducing. There you go. So there you have it. That is a general introduction to manipulating data using So there you have it. That's a general introduction. So there you have it. That's a general introduction to learning to tell a story using Excel, pivot tables, charting, and slicers. Again, I'm going to be producing more division-specific episodes on this topic because I think it's so important. I hope this helps someone. If you think it might help someone I hope you share it. And thanks a lot. Let's do this again.